I would have thought, and I gotta own it, that these tariffs were going to fucking sink this economy by this time, and they didn't. So, you know, how do we deal with that?
Bill Maher, once the poster child for liberal TV and a vocal anti-Trump crusader, just flipped the script. Not only did he challenge the left, he actually defended Trump, cracked open their narrative, and tossed it into the fire. This wasn't a small pivot, this was a full-on reality check. So the question is, has Maher finally reached his breaking point with the far left's delusions? Or are we witnessing the start of a much bigger shift, a wave of liberals waking up to the fact that their side has become exactly what they used to fight against?
People were saying at the beginning, oh, you know, by the 4th of July, somebody had to think how the country the economy was going to be tanked by then. And I was kind of like, well, that seems right to me, but that didn't happen.
Let's give Maher credit where it's due, because this level of honesty on the left is practically extinct. He came right out and said what most liberal commentators won't: the Trump-era economy wasn't the disaster they screamed about 24/7. Remember the outrage over tariffs? Experts were warning of collapse, recessions, the end of global trade. But when none of that happened, did they admit maybe they were wrong? Of course not. They just moved the goalposts. Maher called it out loud and clear. And in doing so, he ripped off the mask. The media couldn't acknowledge Trump did anything right, not because it wasn't true, but because they weren't allowed to. That's the kind of truth that's treated like heresy in progressive circles. Maher said it anyway.
Happen tomorrow? I'm just saying, that's reality. So let's work first from the reality of that, not from I just hate Donald Trump. Because that's boring and doesn't get us anywhere and leads you to dishonesty.
Here's the kicker: Maher exposed the left's real problem, dishonesty. Not just spin, full-blown reality distortion. They've gotten so obsessed with defeating Trump that they've lost sight of everything else, even if it means hoping the country stumbles just so they can say, "Told you so." Real people struggling? That's just background noise in their political drama. And the worst part? The smug detachment. They still pretend to speak for the working class while sitting comfortably above it all. If even Bill Maher thinks the left has become phony, you know it's serious. He's sounding the alarm. And the Democrats? Still asleep at the wheel.
I don't know what his strategy is, but look, your shot doing nothing, not engaging, has zero chance. Mine, this guy, I'm telling you, I know this cat a lot better than I did before. He's a people person. He talks to people. You have to keep the lines open. The stupidest thing the left does, and this dinner is a perfect example of it, is having this attitude toward the right that we won't even break bread with you. We are so far above you that we won't even sit down at the same table.
So why is the left struggling to connect? One word: arrogance. That "we know better than you" attitude might fly on social media, but it turns real people off. Maher warns, if you keep trashing Trump supporters, you're basically writing off half the country. But the elites on the left don't care. They don't want unity, they want compliance. In their world, calling middle Americans racist makes them feel enlightened. But guess what? It just makes them look delusional. These are people with jobs, families, and real concerns, not villains in a political cartoon. You don't win elections by insulting the audience. Maher gets that. The Democrats? Not so much.
That is their attitude, and that makes me sick too. I'm glad I break bread, and that's what makes them hate the left so much. They think that they're deplorables. We're deplorables, and you won't even sit down to dinner with us. Well, good luck. See how far that gets.
And then it got personal. Maher dared to, brace yourself, have dinner with Trump. Just talk. Break bread. And suddenly he was labeled a traitor. The backlash from his own side was vicious. But Maher didn't apologize. He doubled down, because he knows the real issue isn't Trump. It's the left's refusal to tolerate anything outside their groupthink. Today's progressives don't want dialogue, they want total agreement. And that's exactly why they're bleeding support. Americans are sick of being shouted at, labeled, and shamed. Maher's fed up too. He's done pretending that basic decency is betrayal. He's trying to rescue a party that no longer wants to be rescued.
And let's look at their net favorable ratings. Whoa. Woof. I mean, my God, you know, we mentioned CNN. We had that poll come out a little while ago on their net favorable rating. They were 26 points underwater. You think that's low enough? How about we go even lower? We'll go to this side of the screen. I'm going to walk over here. We go to the Wall Street Journal, minus 30 points. 30 points.
You think media bias is overblown? Maher just landed a knockout punch on that too. He pointed straight at the legacy press and called them out for their obsession with turning every Trump moment into a full-blown crisis. Trump sneezes, and suddenly it's a national emergency. This isn't journalism. It's melodrama with a press badge. And Maher sees it, because he's been in the media for decades. What used to be news has turned into theater. And in their desperate campaign to destroy Trump, the media destroyed their own credibility. Maher isn't defending Trump to score points, he's defending reality. Someone had to.
Yeah, and the spirit of it is something that if someone with a blue hat said it, people would nod along on the left. Yes, exactly.
There's plenty of things he says that you don't have to invent them.
Can I just say one thing? And I agree with you. All those criticisms are fair. But there's been a lot of violence, as Nancy Pelosi knows, and a lot of threat.
Let's talk about the left's favorite obsession, Trump derangement syndrome. Maher's diagnosis? Terminal. He's begging his side to snap out of it. The endless outrage, the performative rage, it's not helping. It's hurting. They made Trump the center of their universe and still lost. And now, they're doing it all over again. Maher's warning, you can't win elections by foaming at the mouth. You need a plan, a message, a reason for people to vote for you, not just against someone else. But the Democrats are so addicted to outrage, they can't see it. And if they don't change soon, they're headed straight off the cliff.
What do you make of the statement? I woke up today to the headline that Trump had called for a firing squad for Liz Cheney. And this is what I really don't like about the media. No, he didn't.
He did
not. You don't have to move me to not like Donald Trump.
He says more so many shitty things. Why do you have to do that? And by the way, if you don't realize it, here's what he said. He's criticizing him for being a war hawk. I mean, she is Dick Cheney's daughter. He said, she's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay. Let's see how she feels about it. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh gee, we'll send tens of thousands of troops right into the mouth of the enemy.
Maher didn't stop there. He turned the spotlight on the very culture driving voters away. The wokeness, the pronoun wars, the endless virtue signaling, it's exhausting. And for most Americans, it's not just irrelevant, it's insulting. People want real solutions, not hashtags and token gestures. Maher, a lifelong liberal, is watching his party fall apart in slow motion, not because they're too progressive, but because they're too performative. The working class doesn't want lectures. They want leadership. But the left is too busy patting itself on the back to notice the foundation crumbling beneath them.
Our lowest on record. These polls have records going all the way back since the early 1990s. And when it comes to the Democratic Party's net favorable rating in both the Wall Street Journal poll and the CNN poll, the Democratic Party is breaking records in the way, Jessica Dean, you don't want to break records.
And what happens when you turn every political conversation into a moral purity test? You end up like Stephen Colbert, booted out of relevance. Maher used Colbert as the perfect example. Once a comedy icon, now a one-note crusader stuck in a loop of anti-Trump monologues. The audience tuned out. The ratings fell. And eventually, the network noticed. Maher's message to the left, you're not growing your base, you're shrinking it. Keep canceling everyone who disagrees and you'll end up with a party no one wants to join. Politics isn't supposed to be a purity cult. And if you keep treating it that way, you'll lose everything.
Something really significant is happening right here, and it goes back to President Trump. When he ran for office again, he ran directly at these legacy national broadcasters, and for years, people cowed down to the executives behind these companies based in Hollywood, in New York, and they just accepted that these national broadcasters could dictate how people think about topics, that they could set the narrative for the country, and President Trump fundamentally rejected it. He smashed the facade that these are gatekeepers that can determine what people think.
Here's the part that really stings. Trump's greatest victory wasn't a wall, a trade deal, or even a policy. It was the way he pulled back the curtain on legacy media and exposed it. He showed America the spin, the hypocrisy, the scripted outrage. And once people saw it, they couldn't unsee it. Maher admits this openly. He might not like Trump's style, but he respects the impact. Trump didn't just disrupt politics. He shattered the media's hold on public opinion. And Maher's saying what many are thinking, maybe the system needed to be shaken up after all.
Everything that we're seeing right now flows from that decision by President Trump, and he's winning. I mean, look, PBS has been defunded. NPR has been defunded. CBS is committing to restoring fact-based journalism. And you see it, everything from, Joy Reid is gone at MSNBC. All these things aren't isolated pinpricks. They go back to this emperor has no clothes moment where President Trump stood up to these legacy media gatekeepers, and now their business models are falling.
And finally, the knockout blow. The media isn't mainstream anymore. Americans are turning to independent voices, Joe Rogan, podcasts, YouTubers, because they're tired of the noise. They want honest conversations, not curated narratives. Maher, of all people, is admitting this. The old media model is broken. People don't trust the networks, and they have every reason not to. While legacy journalists keep recycling talking points, the rest of the world has moved on. Independent creators are winning because they treat their audience like adults. Maher sees that. And it's pushing him further away from the Democratic establishment. So here we are. Bill Maher, the guy who once mocked conservatives non-stop, just slammed the brakes on his own party, and he did it live on air. He didn't just offer criticism. He defended Trump, scorched the media, and revealed the decay inside the left's own machine. This wasn't a blip. It was a shift. Maher sees what's coming, and he's trying to warn everyone before it's too late. Because let's face it, more and more Americans are waking up. They're realizing that defending Trump isn't about loving him, it's about rejecting the alternative. The left had their chance. They blew it. Now even their most loyal voices are walking away. If Bill Maher's waking up, maybe it's time the rest of us do too. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We're bringing the real talk the mainstream won't touch. Truth doesn't play favorites, and neither do we.